Now all I want is to see him again. I understand that feeling. I do want to thank you for everything you and your team have done. We're not done yet.
Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Makakadash, Barakatham, to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim, Wa'akwa, and say Shalom. And the Heavenly Father, that you name is Yahweh, and his only begotten Son, Ba'Hashem, and the name of Mashak Kabashai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the last one Kadash Little Tongue, and I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim, Wa'akwa, and say Shalom. And this is a sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates as of June the 8th, 2025 on this Sunday night, Slovakia. And this is a news article from RT.com, as we've been seeing the on and off back and forth clashes throughout the years recently between Israel and Iran. And this is a news article, like I mentioned again, from June the 8th, 2025 from RT.com. For more news, and it reads, it says that Israel-Iran clashes risk of catastrophe. The nuclear watchdog reports. It says the IEA chief has warned of dire consequences as the Western Jerusalem considers a strike on fortified Iranian nuclear sites. It says Israeli threats against Iran's nuclear program has a potential to escalate into a catastrophic scenario. Rafael Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IEA, says West Jerusalem has not ruled out the possibility of striking Tehran's nuclear sites in the event that ongoing talks between the U.S. and Iran break down. Despite the submarine tensions between Israel and Iran, the United States President Donald Trump has reportedly warned his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu taking any military action that could undermine his push for a deal to curb Iranian's nuclear activities. The Israeli threats views that the Iranian thing has been incredibly potentially to become a catastrophe if there is a failure in negotiation. This will imply most probability military action, Grossi told the Financial Times in an interview published on Friday, which was 2 days ago. It says no single precision strike could take out Iran's entrenchment nuclear targets, he added. The most sensitive things are half a mile underground. I have been there many times. To get there, you take a spiraling tunnel down, Rossi said. It says that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon at this moment, but it has the material, he said. It says that Rossi has previously expressed concern over Tehran's growing enrichment activities. It says Iran's intent to prove that its nuclear programs entirely peacefully, Foreign Minister Abbas Grossi told the Egyptian broadcaster Now News in an interview published on Friday. It is unthinkable for Tehran to violate Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's religious ban on nuclear weapons, the top diplomat says. Despite this, Iran will not accept any deal requiring it to give up its domestic enrichment capabilities, Grossi said on Wednesday. No enrichment, no deal, no nuclear weapons. We have a deal. It says during his first term, Trump unilaterally pulled the U.S. out of the 2015 UN-backed comprehensive plan of action, under which Taiwan agreed to curb its nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions and relief. Iran has since gradually increased its enrichment efforts Israel, which views Iran's nuclear activities as a threat, has demanded it cease all enrichments. The decades-long shadow war between the two nations twice escalated into directly missile strikes last year. Tensions have spiked sharply since the start of the Gaza conflict in 2023. It's the book of Matthew, 24th chapter.
Nice to meet you. And let's talk.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet. Right, so these are signs of wars and rumors of wars between Iran and Israel that have been heating up throughout the years, from previous years in the past, and recently as well too. And that's what we're seeing, rising tension between Iran and Israel. Matthews 24 verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation. Right, that's what we're saying, Iran versus Israel. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. So as it says once again, the Iran-Israel clash risk is catastrophic. Nuclear watchdog reports. Well, so this is a sign of building up of wars and rumors of wars, even though it's been on and off back and forth, throughout the years and recently. So this is an increasing uptick sign of wars and rumors of wars. And this is a news article that's been taking place ever since Friday all the way to Sunday, as we've been seeing protests have been heating up over there in California. I would say, Paramount, California, and all the way in Los Angeles, California. Ever since Friday and all the way to now, as protests have been taking place for the past 2 days. And this is a news article from RT.com. As of June the 8th, 2025, World News and Reads. It says Trump orders feds to liberate Los Angeles. It says the California governor has pushed back against the United States president move to surpass pro-immigration rights in his state. It says President Donald Trump has directed top federal officials to take all such action necessary to end days of violence unrest in Los Angeles, ordering the deployment of National Guard troops and violence to liberate the cities from what is described as an invasion by criminal migrants. It says a once great American city, Los Angeles, have been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals. Trump posted on Truth Social on Sunday. Now, violence and insurrectionist mobs and swarming attacks our federal agents trying to stop our deportation operation. But these lawless riots only strengthen our resolve. Order will be restored, and the illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. It says the president state has instructed Homeland Security Secretary Cressy Norman, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Attorney General Pam Bondi to coordinate with the federal agencies to quell the unrest. It says Trump comments follows 2 days of clashes between the protests and federal immigration agents, prompting Trump to authorize the deployment of 2,000 National Guards. It says tensions peak on Sunday afternoon as hundreds of protesters gathered outside the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles. It says the video footage shows a National Guard troops face off with protesters behind riot gears, and at one point tear gas was fired, but authorities have not confirmed which agencies use of force or what triggered the escalations. It says Governor Gavin Newsom condemned the federal takeover of California's National Guard and unconstitutional and political motivated, formally demand that President Trump withdraw the order and return control of the troops to the state. It says we didn't have a problem until Trump got involved. He came in on X. This is a serious breach in state sovereignty, inflaming tensions while pulling sources from where they actually need it. It says the unrest began Friday and intensified Saturday in the city of Paramount and Compton, following multiple immigration raids, which over 100 people were arrested. Demonstration attempts to block border patrol vehicles and some threw rocks and debris at police. Federal agents responded with tear gas and pepper balls and flashbang grenades. It says the LA let off less vehicles and struggle maintain crowd control. It says FUK the PIGS. It says the Homeland Security accused local politicians of following uphold public safety instead of writing. They should be thanking ISE officials every single day who wake up to make our community safe, said the DHA's Assistant Secretary Tracy McLaughlin. It says critics said Trump's move bypassed the constitutional norms. Senator Bernie Sanders describes the deployment as a presidential move. This country is rapidly into authoritarianism. It says the House Speaker Mike Johnson, by contrast, defending the order, blaming California's Democratic leadership for this order. It says while the previous National Guard deployments in Los Angeles was initiated by state officials, and this marks the first federal override since the 1960s civil riots ever. It remained unclear how long the troops will remain in the city. It says a defense secretary said warned that the active duty Marines could deploy next if the violence continues. Approximately 500 Marines from the 2nd Platoon and 7 Marines in the 20th Ninth Homes, California, are in a prepared to deploy status should be necessary to augment and support the DoD's protections of federal property and personal efforts, the U.S. Northern Command announced in a statement on Sunday.
Promise to be your best friend forever. Love them like family. Feed them like family. Fired up. The all-new Dragon Flame Grill.
It's the book of Luke 21 and verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth. Disgressive nations will perplexities run. Right, so we see the increase in disgressive nations with the uptick of wars, people war, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And we definitely seeing the signs of the sun and the moon and the stars from the heavenly Father, Yahweh showing us. And we definitely seeing the upon the earth disgressive nations will perplexities which war, especially with these uptick of protesters that we've been seeing. And this is the book of St. Mark, chapter 3. It's the book of St. Mark, chapter 3, verse 24. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, a kingdom cannot stand. Right, got Edomite nations, especially from the both sides, from the politicians, from the liberals and conservatives, accusing other, because of this protest. You got the Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's the governor taking shots at Donald Trump. They got Donald Trump taking shots at the control of the Democrats over there in Los Angeles. How they are not controlling the situation when these protests have been taking place. Then got Gavin Newsom saying, Donald Trump's order is unconstitutional. Is fully controlling, So that's what you call both sides opposing each other from the liberal and the conservative side. So that's what you see, modern day kingdom, a modern day house is being about itself. It says Saint Mark Day, verse 24. And if a kingdom be divided, itself the kingdom cannot stand. So a kingdom within itself being divided, which cannot stand, that's what we see. Saint Mark Day, verse 25. And if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. Right, Edomites being divided, because the liberal Edomites versus conservative Edomites, that's what we're seeing. And if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. Right, that's what we're seeing. Let's bring up that second Esdras.
Only pay for what you need. I haven't even told you the best part of the story. The club. The club.
It's the book of second Esdras.
I am good with this club.
Second Esdras 9 verse 3. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars, people the world. Right, so we're seeing an increase in earthquakes and uproars, people the world. Second Esdras 15 and verse 14. Yep, it says, woe to the world and they that dwell therein. Second Esdras 15 verse 15. For the sword of destruction draweth nigh. Right, for the sword of destruction draweth nigh. We're seeing an increase. It's going to come to full effect. And one, people should stand up and fight against another with swords in hands. Right, with these protesters. That's taking place over here in the United States. You know, as of recently, over there in Los Angeles, as I brought up that news article. It says, second Esdras 15 verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, right, which we're seeing right now. The Palestine, the pro-Palestinians going against the pro-Israelis. That's what we're seeing, sedition among men. But these latest protests have been taking place over there in Panama, California, and over there in downtown Los Angeles. That's what you call sedition among men. It says, for there shall be sedition among men invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor their princes, and of course actions in their power. What we seen took place yesterday. You had this 15-year-old had tried to take out one over there in Colombia was trying to run for president. And I believe it's a 2026 election. It's going to be coming up next year over there in Colombia. And then you had one of the runners up from trying to run for president for next year. And, you know, while he was outside talking, and then you had some individual that came up to him, almost took him out. I believe he's in critical condition. I'm lucky he survived the incident because he had, you know, in the middle part, back of his body, you know, it was multiple wounds, and it was a multiple wound up top of his back of his head as well too. By actually a person we did that, you know, tried to take him out. So hey, this is a prime example of they should not regard their kings nor their princes, and of course actions stand in power. And that's what we've been seeing. And we've seen that previously, I would say, was over there in Bolivia. We almost got a former president over there in Bolivia. He almost got taken out. And you had yeah, what's up, man? Yeah. Right.
It is going to be okay because I take my job as peacemaker very seriously.
Right. Oh. I see. All right. So we definitely, you know, seen examples of this been taking place, you know, throughout the years. Because you had one of the, I believe it's a former prime minister over there in Japan. I believe it happened like 2 or 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. You had this individual had a homemade weapon try to take him out, you know. So we definitely been seeing signs of this. And then not too long ago, you had one of the, I believe it was over there in Serbia, if I'm not mistaken. One of those leaders, he almost got taken out as well too. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the throughout the years and generations, and recently, you know, we've been seeing citizens been rising up against their leaders in power. You know, they've been taken to a whole nother level. Even if their life is on the line, they're trying to take out one of the leaders. that's in, that's in leadership, or a prime minister, or a president, or a vice president, whatever the case may be. And that's what we've been seeing. So we're definitely going to be seeing that heating in these days and more increasing days to come. That's what we've been seeing. So we've definitely been seeing the uptick of citizens clashing against one another, rising up against one another, and sedition among men. And we've been seeing citizens rising up against their leaders of power as well too. So these are just prime examples, that I just mentioned. So we're gonna see more increasing signs like that. It says 2nd Esdras 15 verse 16. And 2nd Esdras the 16th chapter is going to be a great insurrection, which they uprising, which we definitely seeing preview signs of it, throughout the generations and as of recently as well too. So we're going to see that occur once again. 2nd Esdras 15 verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They should not regard their kings nor their princes, and of course the action stand in power. Right, so it's going to be sedition among men, which is going to come to full effect. And it's going to be, they should not regard their kings or their princes, of course the action stand in power. Right, so you're going to have citizens having increasing heavy clashes, increasingly going against their leaders of power. And we're going to be seeing more lawlessness and iniquities. Lawlessness and iniquity is going to abound. Like it says in 1 John 3 verse 4. Whosoever committed sin also transgress the law. So lawlessness and iniquity is going to abound, more seditions and more uprising, more upward people will, and they definitely not going to, and they definitely should not regard their kings or their princes. Of course, they actually stand in power, and we definitely seeing that, especially for this past couple of days. And like I mentioned, what happened over there in Colombia, you got a runner-up president for next year, 2026. The elections that they're going to take place in next year almost got taken out by a 15-year-old individual. And then you got these ICE raid immigrant protests that have been taking place over there in California. You had some raids over here in Illinois, I believe New York, I believe in different parts of the United States, Colorado. And then just like we seen a week and a half ago, I would say, like about a couple of days ago last week, you had the incident over there in Boulder, Colorado. That individual, I believe he was a pro-Palestinian going against those pro-Israelis. So we definitely seeing the sedition among men. We seeing that increasing. And we definitely seeing 2nd Esdras 15th chapter coming to full effect. Right along with 2nd Esdras 16th chapter, that great insurrection uprising. And that's what we're seeing. So I'm going to read that once again. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 9, verse 3. It says, therefore, there shall be seen earthquakes of world speaking the world. Right, as we see increasing earthquakes of world speaking the world. And this is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, verse 1. It says, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose of heaven. Right, so we're living in modern days of times and seasons, every purpose of heaven, which is modern day biblical signs and signs of times, and the prophecies come to pass to be fulfilled. So we're definitely in those modern day times and seasons, every purpose of heaven. Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, verse 8. In a time to love, in a time of HATE, in a time of war, and time of peace. Right, so we're definitely living in a time of war. Going to be seeing seditions, uprisings, upwards, people of the world, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, increasing all at once. And it's definitely going to come to full effect. So we're definitely in those times. In the time of HATE, right, we're seeing that we're in the time of HATE, lawlessness, iniquity, and heavy judgments are increasing. So we definitely are in those times, So as it says, once again, Trump orders feds to liberate Los Angeles. As California governor has pushed back against the U.S. president move to surpass the pro-immigration riots in the state. Right, so this is what you call sedition among men. So this is a preview sign. This is just a preview of what's about to come even more and more as the days. As we progress in the days of the signs, as we continue to progress in the days of signs of the times,
Ugly reality. I watch as his world just keeps getting smaller. But then, Trilogy helped us see things a little differently. With 3 medicines in 1 inhaler, Trilogy keeps airways open for a full 24 hours. And this is a news article from RT.com once again. As we've been seeing the rising tensions heating up between the Russia-Ukraine situation, especially as of lately.
It says June the 8th, 2025 from RT.com, and it reads, it says Ukraine plans the drone attack on Russian ships in Asia. The WAPO reports Kyiv considering targeting the Pacific Fleet with the unnamed surface vessels, according to the paper. It says Ukraine plans to strike Ukraine warships in the Asia Pacific with drones similarity to how it's attacked air bases hosting the country's strategic bombers, the Washington Post has reported. Last Sunday, Ukraine has targeted Russian air bases across the nation, from the Murmansk in the Arctic and the Irkutsk in Serbia. It says in a coordinated assault, which involved explosions, landed UAVs taking over from the commercial trucks. Kyiv named its so-called Operation Spiderweb damage or destroyed several dozens of Russian military aircraft, including TSU-95 and Tu-22 nuclear capability long-range bombers, according to Moscow. Most of the incoming bombers were shot down, and none of the effective Russian planes were behind the repair. The Russian Post said in an article Thursday that Ukraine has considered a naval version of the sneak attack tactics in its use against the Russian base a week ago, according to the paper sources Kyiv intelligence service. It says whales sending sea in drones hitting in a cargo container to attack ships of Russia's and its allies in the North Pacific. It said, but so far they apparently has yet to launch these operations, the WAPO added. It says Russian Pacific Fleet has its headquarters in the city of Vladivostok, if I pronounce that right, which is located in the country's far east, some 45 kilometers from the border with China, and 134 kilometers from the border with North Korea. It says U.S. President Donald Trump says Wednesday that its Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, told him on a phone that Moscow will have to respond to all Kyiv's attempts to target its strategic habitation. This week, the Russian defense minister reported several large-scale strikes using drones and longer-range precision-guided weapons against Ukraine defense industry, enterprise, military airfields, and drones productions and strikes. Production storages and launch sites and armed deposits, as well as the deployment points of the Ukrainian military units and foreign mercenaries. It says, however, Reuters reported on Saturday, citing unnamed U.S. officials, that Washington believes that Moscow's retaliation has not happened yet, in the earnest and likely to be a significant multi-prolonged strike. One of the sources that the Russian response expected within days. Since the escalations of the Ukrainian conflict in February 2022, Kyiv has repeatedly deployed and the naval drones against the vessels and the bases of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, as well as against the 19 km bridge, which connects Crimea and mainland Russia. Most of those unnamed service vessels have been destroyed, according to the Russian defense ministry. Get to that Ezekiel 38th chapter.
You're right. No, she's not right. These are work tests. Work. I'm sure CSI will survive a couple hours without you.
It's the book of Ezekiel, because this is a future prophecy of Ezekiel as well too. And this is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, verse 4. It says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth in all thy army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great couple of bucket shoes, all of them having swords. Right, so the Heavenly Father is going to continue to put the hooks and actually jaws in each Russians to be in that Russian Federation spirit. You know, as we have the ongoing tensions between Russia, Ukraine is heating up, and Russia versus NATO that's been heating up as well too, and Russia versus the EU. So we're definitely seeing signs of Russia is going to continue to be in that warlike mindset, despite the fact they've been having these increasing progress of peace talks. So we're going to see how it plays out. But till then, you're still going to have Russia in that warlike mindset of Russia versus the Israel defense. I mean, Russia versus NATO, and Russia versus EU, and Russia versus the Israel defense force over there in Syria as well too. Ezekiel chapter 30 verse 5, it says Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with all of them shield of him. Just like you had the person from the IEA, the watchdog, he said the tensions between Iran and Israel is going to be catastrophic. If a ceasefire, if a nuclear deal is not being settled, if it fails, and then Israel is going to continue to have that mindset to strike Iran nuclear sites, which they did previously. So that shows you that the tensions between Iran and Israel, we understand it, even though it's been on and off, but it's going to increase once again. Ezekiel chapter 30 verse 5, Persia, which is Elam, Ethiopia, Cush, Libya put all of them with shield of helmet, and these are the nations that Russia is going to continue to be allies with. Ezekiel chapter 30 verse 6, it says Gomer, or the Turkish armies, and all his bands, the house of Tokubo of the northern quarters, and all his bands, many people with you, because you still got the the Turkish armies over there in Iraq and Syria. Ezekiel 30 verse 7, it said, Be thou prepared, prepare for thyself and all thy companies that are assembled unto thee, and be thy guard unto them. Right, so Russia is going to be a guard to these nations, so Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, Turkey, especially over there in Syria, because you're going to have a continuing increasing alliance between the Russian armies, the Syrian armies, the pro-Iranian groups, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They are going to continue to team up together, and their focus is going to be the Israel Defense Force. And that's what we're seeing that's taking place. And it's going to come into full effect. And this is the prophet Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9. It says, Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Right, that's what we're seeing. All these armies and nations are in that warlike mindset. That's why this continues to be proclaimed among the Gentiles and the armies of nations. And the Heavenly Father put in that warlike mindset. He's awakening up the mighty men of these armies of nations. And let all the men of war draw near and let them come up. That's what we're seeing over there in Western Asia. Joel 3 and verse 10. Yep, Joel chapter 3 verse 10. It says, Beat your plowshares and the swords and the plenty hooks, and let the weak stand strong. Right, let the weak stand strong. Of the pro-Iranian groups rise up against their adversaries, and all these other nations that nuclear capability rise up against their adversaries and against one another as well too. Because all of it's going to lead to the Third World War as they continue to be heating gathered over there in Western Asia. Bring up this last scripture, then I'm closing out. And this is the book of Revelations, 11 verse 14. The second will pass, behold, the third will come quickly. Right, so the second will come to pass, behold, the third will come quickly, which is Armageddon, Armageddon 1. So with that, hopefully this sit-down lesson was edifying of the prophecy updates as of June the 8th, 2025 on this Sunday night. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, HaKadosh, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and Son of the Son, Ba'ashem, and name of Mashiach Kabashai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, Lashwan Kadash tongue. And I say Barak Thumb to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim, Wa'akwaf. Until next time, I will say Shalom.
What would you like me to say? Yes. I may have called it, but I still have to say, you move fast.